All right, I just watched the latest Paranormal Activity film, Paranormal Activity Next of Kin. And so this is, I guess, a reboot of sorts, or maybe not. It's just a completely separate story. The other films were all connected, even the supposed spin-off film, the marked ones, as it were. It was actually very much involved with the story and suggested all other possibilities of what they could have done. They didn't. And ultimately, the story ended, the demon Toby won. He got what he wanted, and, he was in physical form walking around. So, in that version of Paranormal Activity, I guess that was it. The world ended with that monster walking around. Who knows? And so here we have another story detailing this young woman who was given up for adoption, and she's getting clues to where her mother and her family comes from, and it's supposedly this Amish community. And, well, of course, that's not quite what it really is, and all that sort of stuff. An apparent demonic cult, or maybe not, who knows really, trying to keep a demon at bay rather than worship it, apparently. I don't know. The weird, creepy looking creatures in a cavern, but down below, and all. The photography is probably better than it's ever been, but therein lies a bit of the problem. The overall story of just doing like perhaps one-shot features of Paranormal Activity, where the original story was something that was had this narrative that was all connected, and I think deviated too far from what it had already established, which was part of the failings of it, which is unfortunate. Plus, not enough Katie. But here we've got this new girl, and I'm not going to spoil a whole lot. I gave you the trailer of the film pretty much tells you everything that happens. You pretty much know the story just from the trailer, which is pretty stupid. But the thing about Paranormal Activity is that it became the dominant franchise in the found footage genre, which ran its course, and I think it's, for all intents and purposes, over. It's just something that someone might approach at a time or two. Most of them are pretty bad. And in the failings of it is that they can't quite figure out how to make it credible enough that your character would keep filming what they're filming when they're experiencing all this wild, crazy crap, and they're on the verge of dying and all that. And that's the whole premise of this. When you have shows where people are ghost hunters or what have you, or they're looking for Sasquatch and all that, and you never get there. You never really see anything because there's more than likely nothing there. But but what if it did? What if it happened? And if someone could catch that on film, and their camera was left behind or whatever, and you find it, and you're like, oh my God, they got abducted by aliens or whatever. And that's the coolness of it. And so you've got to figure out how to maintain that credibility. Some have, and the ones that are the worst didn't. And you've got to have actors who could pull that off, where you believe these are somebody you could bump into at the grocery store or what have you, And the original did that, in my opinion. I bought those characters. And they seem to work hard on explanations for the scenarios to why would someone be in this position and that sort of thing. And for the most part, they did. They came up for reasons of how the cameras could be in the positions they were to capture what happened and all that sort of thing. And here, well, very simply, it's like all the way back to Blair Witch, where they want to film a documentary, and they're I guess they're film students and what have you. And she's got this story and said, why don't we do a film project on that? And that's what they're doing at the outset. And then, oh boy, there's all this creepy stuff going on, and so that's all very good. But you've got to decide: are you a found footage movie, or are you just a regular horror movie? and at the time Blair Witch came out, there was another film that didn't get as much notice, was called The Last Broadcast, and that one was very much within keeping of found footage, but also with the faux documentary style, which actually worked quite well until the very end, when all of a sudden it's just a regular movie, and that doesn't work. Of course, the reveal of who the real killer was and all this sort of thing, it's understandable, but you can't just jump in and out like that. They did a Blair Witch sequel recently. Is actually the third Blair Witch film. It's terrible, the absolute worst. But it is too bad, because they added in elements of the modern day technology, drones and whatnot. And this film does the same thing, but they don't detail it enough, and it's obvious it's so far afield that you're doing shots that you would do in a normal film without the found footage element. And there's moments, and of course there's jump scares and this sort of thing. Some people, it says they're tired of them, they don't like them, okay, what have you, but it's a horror film, you're going to get a bit of that. And there's this one scene where you see an image or what have you, and suddenly there's a brief moment of music in it. You can't have music in a found footage unless you have some means by which to explain it. There's someone's playing a radio or what have you, or there's just weird noises around, and the character would have to acknowledge that there's something in there. There was As Above, So Below. They managed to make a sort of soundtrack to it, but just because of the weird environment they were in, they're literally going to hell, and there's all these weird noises and stuff, and that worked. Here, they just do that, and then at the penultimate, the main climax of the film, of the characters in all kinds of trouble, suddenly they just jump into it's a regular movie now for a few seconds. Then they go back to being found footage. It just doesn't work. You can't do that. You have to pick one. I mean, what were they trying to suggest? That we're seeing the supernatural viewpoint or something? No, just so yeah. The cast were okay if they had been in just your standard regular horror movie. These people stumbling into this weird scenario, they would have been fine. As found footage performers, not so good. They just didn't quite click right. A couple of them did a time or two, but then some of them, there's one guy, he's obviously the comic relief guy, and it's a bit over the top here and there. Not totally over the top, but to the point of pushing you out of the faux reality of found footage. And that's how you do it. It's not easy, but there's elements here that could have worked. It could have worked, even though it's as far as the original Paranormal Activity, it's done. That's too bad, because I thought they could have done other things with it, but they didn't, and that's that. The story's over. Toby won, by the way. I don't know what became of Katie. That's too bad. I miss Katie. But anyway, so I guess they could follow this up, giving it away a little bit here about who survives. But oh boy. Then so they jump, and this is the problem with the Paranormal Activity overall, and even with Blair Witch and stuff. There's no explanation of hey, how are you seeing this? Who produced this footage that's showing the final moments of these poor victims and everything? That element kind of has to be there too, and it's not, because suddenly they jump from your main characters at the end to all right, some police officers and their body cams and everything, which would be would work out fine, but there's no structure there by which, how am I seeing this, and what, who produced this? I guess the supernatural produced the film and gave well, we can read the credits. It was yeah, but it's just a shame. It could have given you just a simple scary romp, very basic plot and whatnot, but it's stupid things like that, which was completely unnecessary. There's means by which you get your scene and shots through the found footage structure, but you've got to decide you're in a found footage movie or you're in, a regular horror film of this scenario that these people found themselves in. But they didn't do it. So that's too bad. Again, as I said before, I'm a sucker for found footage films. I've watched quite a few of them. A lot of them are terrible. For the reasons that I said, this one is not as bad as some of the worst I've seen, but it's just, it is a disappointment. But it was brought back to help out Paramount Plus. I don't think it will. But I'd rather sit through this than any of their new Star Trek crap. So, hey, there's that. Gee, I hope they don't mess up Beavis and Butthead, because they're going to do new ones of those, for that streaming service. So there it is. Next of Kin, as far as I'm concerned, has now become probably the worst of the Paranormal Activity films. And that's sad, because, as I said, the elements that I'm complaining about here were unnecessary. They could have just worked around that. But for whatever reason, didn't. And you don't want to push people out of your movie when you do stuff like that. It happens. So you can't have music in your found footage films unless there's some explanation for it. Primarily, especially for horror, it's some weird noises and stuff, atmospherics and what have you, or someone's just playing a song on the radio. You can do that, but you can only go so far with that too. So can't do that, and you can't suddenly have camera shots that are obviously not found footage. It's just the normal way of filming things. So those are big elements that they just stupidly stumbled in and out of here, and as far as I'm concerned, ruined the film. That, I don't think it was going to knock anyone's socks off, but it could have been a nice little horror movie, and now it's not. So there you are, Paranormal Activity, next of kin. Thanks for watching and listening. Say, while you're still here, why not like and subscribe and share with your many friends? Yes. Also, check out my mini stores in the link description below. Yes, where you can get t-shirts, hats, mugs, all those goodies with my artwork on them. Oh, yeah. And head over to indieplanet.com and pick up a copy of my comic book, Night Night. Oh, yeah. You can also catch me at my podcast, Mr Nailsin Show, on RadioMisfits.com. And you can also watch my videos on BitChute.com and now on Rumble.com. Oh, my goodness, so many places to watch me and my stuff. Oh, yeah. And if that's not enough for you, well, you can follow me on many social media platforms and say hi to your old pal, Mr. Nailsin. Liz, we've got some bad news. We don't have a turkey this year, and since you kind of look like one, well, yeah.
Burn the witch!
I'm a scientist, Driscoll. I believe what I can see, what I can feel and touch.
The basis of fairy tales is reality. The basis of reality is fairy tales.
Did you ever meet a witch, Driscoll?
Yes, and then I divorced her.
And now back to Rockin' Dale's Death Metal Marathon.
Oh, yeah.
So, Pat, about those overdue book charges.